Think you've seen an amazing John Wall 360 layup? Think again. American Express is bringing basketball fans the epic journeys behind the All-Star moves. Go to youtube.com/American Express now and see the All-Star journeys behind the All-Star moves.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd podcast.
So I'm out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And, a lot of former athletes, Barkley, Howie Long, they have residences out here. It's a nice place to live. The weather's good, Camelback Mountain, a lot of golf courses. They're nice. But my family is back in the Northeast where there were predictions of a massive blizzard. And you can send me your storm pictures at BlizzHerd. This morning I'd like to look at the massive storm that hit the East Coast. But I told my wife yesterday, she was kind of freaking out. She was like, oh, my God, I'm kind of getting scared. And I'm like, turn the television off. You are in life what you consume. You watch dumb TV, you'll be dumb. You eat crappy food, you'll get fat. You are what you consume. So be careful what you consume, read, listen to, watch. And I told my mom this before she passed away. We were in a discussion one time. And I'm like, Mom, you don't want to become like one of those angry, bitter old people. Like there's two ways to die. Grace, dignity, help others, be happy, or crusty and bitter and old. And I'm like, so do yourself a favor. And my mom and I never really talked politics. She didn't care much about politics. My dad did a little bit. But I just didn't talk about politics with my family. And I don't with my sister. And I do with a couple friends. But I don't even talk it that much. But I told my mom, I said, Mom, this is not a political statement. But turn off Fox News. Like once you're past 70, turn it off. Because it's a fear fest. Those people are lurking around the corner. They're coming into our country. I'm like, Mom, stop it. You want to die with dignity. You want to die with grace. You want to be happy. You want to help others. You don't want to be afraid of those people lurking around the corner. So I said, watch Fox all you want. Get to 70, stop watching. Or you just go kooky madookie. You're afraid of everything because you're old and have less mobility anyway, so you're going to be fearful of things you weren't fearful of earlier anyway. So stop watching stuff to get you all worked up. And I said yesterday to my wife, I'm like, stop watching CNN, the Weather Channel. Weather people don't get fired for exaggeration. They get fired for predictions that don't give you a heads up on a storm. Everybody was like 60-mile-an-hour winds, 70-mile-an-hour winds, 35 inches of snow. My house got like 7. 25-mile-an-hour winds. That's it. So what you consume is what you will be. Food, radio, TV. Just be careful. Just sometimes you just got to get off Twitter, get off the internet, get off TV. It drives you crazy. It'll just drive you crazy. So Chris Mortensen said this yesterday. I thought it was an interesting comment. And I've been saying for years, the NFL has a unique place in American society. It's not just overwhelmingly the number one sport. That's impressive. That's hard to do. It is also simultaneously the number one television show on 4 or 5 networks in America. That's unbelievable. I mean, remember the show American Idol, how popular it was for like 7, 8 years? That was just on one. Just one network. NFL's American Idol, except better on 4 and 5 networks. And it dominates another industry, sports. So a lot of criticism. Chris Mortensen said this yesterday about the Deflate Gate and what's happened to the NFL this year.
This has been a rough year, whether it be Ray Rice or Adrian Peterson, botched investigations, whatever, and it goes back even beyond before that.
Yep.
So they're not happy at this. They're not happy of any allegation that this is a sting operation or that they set it up. Why would they smear their own Super Bowl? They are very unhappy that they are now here. The biggest game, a great game, and look what we're talking about.
Now just stop there. Look what we're talking about. What are we talking about? A deflated ball? I got to tell you something. Baseball today is much more ethical than football, right? But it's also more boring. The NFL is a television show, and this is a soap opera, and this will create record ratings. You know why golf and NASCAR are in trouble? They don't have a villain. When golf had Tiger, I loved him. Many didn't. He's a villain. Ratings skyrocket. Leaves, ratings in the tank. When NASCAR had Dale Sr. and Jeff Gordon, rural people loved Dale. A little more urban following for Jeff Gordon, handsome guy, kind of felt like the city. Jeff Gordon wins less, ratings go down. Nobody hates Jimmy Johnson. It's a soap opera. Patriots are a villain. This is a TV show. Yes, this is what it is. And by the way, Tom Brady said something, and a lot of media people did not like this. But Tom Brady said something the other day at the press conference when he stood there. And he one of the rules in sports for me has always been love your life, like your sports. At the end, it's a game. Football is a game the kids play, and if they're really good, a handful of them go play professionally and get paid. But we all started playing this at like 9 years old. But Tom Brady said, settle down, people. Listen to this.
Things are going to be fine. This isn't ISIS. No one's dying.
Media didn't like that. Whoa! Tom, did you just go there? Yes, Tom just went there. Nobody's saying the NFL doesn't have serious issues. Domestic violence, DUIs. But those are societal issues that happen at a far greater number outside of the NFL. And something else I've learned. When you become number one at anything, Nike, ESPN, Facebook, you're going to get more criticism. Nike, as if they're the only company in the world that ever made their shoes outside of our borders. No, you're just the one that got criticized. Facebook always gets slaughtered for privacy issues. Hello, Google. What you go to Yahoo email, you go to Google, what do you think they're selling? Your information. But everybody talks about Facebook and their privacy concerns. Listen, I've worked at ESPN now for over a decade. A lot of the criticism for ESPN is warranted. Most of it's not. The truth is, criticizing ESPN now is an industry. It's an industry. ESPN stinks. Sports blogger making $28,000 a year, gets the clicks, now he's making 38, 48, 58. Self-sufficient, has a real job. Doesn't have to go to his insurance company. He can now just do a blog for a living. Hating ESPN is an industry. It gets clicks. Skip Bayless, Chris Berman, click, 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 click. So the NFL is so big, and because it's public, it's pretty transparent, it's going to get criticism. It's going to get criticism. It's been a rough year for the NFL. It's not going to stop. It's Nike. It's ESPN. It's Facebook. You can't run a perfect company when you've got 32 billionaire maverick owners. Some are egomaniacs. There's hedonism everywhere. Your employees are mostly rich 23-year-old guys who get paid millions of dollars coming from nothing. This is the reality of America's biggest soap opera. Deer antler spray, deflate gate, and it's not hurting the league. It is what happens to soap operas and Facebook and ESPN and the NFL. When you get that big, you're gonna attract attention.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Howie Long's joining me. You look like $1 million. You know why you look so good? Because you fish. Guys who, I'm telling you right now, it's my theory. Guys who fish are able to relax. You fish, right?
I don't know for relaxing. I think my relaxation meter, when I played, it was way up here, and I think at moments it goes down.
It's amazing. You are living, Clay Matthews, the Matthews family in the Long family.
They're incredible.
They're an incredible family. But it is, even if you are an NFL player or an NBA player, Michael Jordan's son's not a great player, your kids have become NFL players.
Yeah.
Now, the belief is generally the more affluence in life, the less drive a kid will have. That's kind of in the fear that Michael Jordan's kid has nothing to play for, right? Dad's MJ. Your kids, despite you being successful, became NFL players. So you're parenting. How did you create that motivation with your kids despite the life?
Well, I think you try to set an example. This is how once they made the decision that they wanted to play. Chris said, you gotta remember when he was a young kid and he said he wanted to play. I remember my wife and I having that conversation late at night, staring at the ceiling, before you go to sleep. Well, he wants to play football. Okay, well, we'll do that. He'll get his nose bloodied and he won't want to play.
Right.
What you can't put to the side is DNA. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
And, I could try to force Kyle into baseball, and he went into baseball and got drafted out of high school and was an All-American football player and baseball player. But inevitably he came back to football, and it's who you are. You can run from it, but you are who you are.
You like banging into people.
I guess so. I mean, I got tired of it at a certain point. I mean, if I could do it once a week, I could have played longer.
That's what the guys say.
Or if the practice schedule was more like it is now. Back then, training camp was 6 weeks, and it was live goal line, live inside run, full gear, 6 days a week.
Every day.
Oh, yeah.
6 weeks.
Training camp, yeah. Brutal.
You can barely do that in the games now.
No. No. And I'm watching these guys playing the Pro Bowl. It's just an awkward game. The first 2 series, what do we do here? Who's going to hit somebody first? And
I think I don't like it. I think they should cancel it.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, there's some logic to that, but I think by the time the 3rd series rolls around, it starts to get serious. The guys start to pick up. And believe it or not, despite all the money, that extra $25,000, huge. Yeah. Huge. The difference between 50 and 25, you think these guys, that's a tip.
But there is some pride. Do you remember the last hit, Howie Long joining us, Hall of Famer, 8 Pro Bowls? Do you remember your last tackle?
No. You know what? I spend very little time thinking about playing when I played. I really don't. And it was never a topic of conversation in the house. My kids hear things about me playing from former teammates or friends.
You and I never talk football. We talk family, we talk stuff.
Yeah, I moved on from that. It was a great time. It was something that in many ways defined who I am and how I approach life, that work ethic, the camaraderie, the teamwork, all those things. But I've spent very little time thinking about my career as a football player.
You ever met Matt Light, former Patriot?
Yeah,
He didn't even like football. Matt's like, to be honest with you, I didn't really watch college football until I played at Purdue.
If you're playing in New England, the workload, the practice, the meetings, the attention to detail, their ability to kind of morph from one thing, one series to the next, not week to week, half to half, series to series, requires a great deal of dedication and intelligence. And I think by the time you're done with that, you're probably exhausted. I marvel at that. I mean, we were a simple defense. You're from the Northwest.
Yes.
That defense we played, 82, 83, 84, 85, we were a lot like Seattle in the sense that we're going to line up in a 3-4 defense. We're going to blitz once or twice a game. We're going to play man coverage. We had 2 great corners. And that's what we're going to do. You can do all the pre-snap things, Omaha, all that stuff. Go ahead and do it and then snap the ball. We're going to whip your rear end.
Who would you have rather – so using that as a template, I guess you would have liked to have played for Pete more than Belichick.
I think they're both in their own way. I think they're probably more similar than people think. Pete just goes about it a different way. It's the incredible amount of enthusiasm that football team has on a daily basis. I think it starts with Pete. I think the attention to detail, and I'm always intrigued by being challenged mentally, and I think what they do in New England, their ability, they could be a 3-man front, 4-man front, they could be 2 down linemen, they could be in man coverage, zone coverage. Your defensive tackle can play defensive end, your right guard can play left tackle. We're all interchangeable, therefore we're all replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy in New England.
And it's interesting that pro athletes today, where there's great empowerment, and they should be. Richard Sherman's like calling the league out.
I love Richard Sherman.
So do I. My favorite player right now in the league. But what's very interesting, we're in an empowerment movement with LeBron James. I can't breathe. But yet in New England, it's a throwback. It's for the team.
Yep.
It's remarkable that it works.
Do your job.
One for all.
Yes.
No, it's not the empowerment of the individual.
And from what I hear, when he starts those meetings, you dread those if you get hooked one time in a game or if you blow a coverage or that Monday morning meeting, I'm sure, is a horror. Because they're putting that film up in front of the whole team. And I think Bill Belichick, and it's not just alphabetically with Brady, they're calling the quarterback out. They're calling everybody out in New England. Everybody is accountable in New England.
Yeah,
and I think they do. In Seattle, I think the way that team is made up, they challenge each other. In many ways, that locker room and that group on defense in particular, they hold each other accountable. They're accountable to one another.
They're almost collegiate.
Yeah,
young.
And I think the interesting thing is the guy that people don't talk enough about is, and it's Richard's great and Thomas is great and all that, and they've got some really colorful people. Cam Chancellor is a card-carrying bad man. I mean, and there's a lot of tough guys in the NFL and a lot of tough guys on both these football teams. Cam Chancellor is a bona fide card-carrying bad man.
Intimidates other players.
And when he speaks, people in that locker room listen.
Howie Long joining us, Hall of Famer, 8 Pro Bowls. When I was in Vegas, my first job out of college, I got a job in Vegas, pretty well chronicled. I covered Tyson. And it is interesting. Tyson intimidated other fighters. And I remember as like a 25-year-old sportscaster, I was kind of in awe of it. Bobby Knight intimidated Tark. It's very rare in sports when alpha males are intimidated. I think Belichick gets in people's heads.
Sure.
I think.
What do you prepare for? How do you prepare for
the Wizard of Oz?
Right. You're going to see every conceivable scheme: 4-down linemen, ineligible receivers, eligible receivers, run at 50, throw at 50. They can morph into whatever they want to do on a weekly basis, and that's not only a testament to their staff, but the players who have the ability to do that week in and week out to change. I think it's taxing. I really do. Here's the thing. If you're a young wide receiver or a tight end, you break the huddle, you line up, Cam Chancellor walks up on you, you go, he's not a safety. There's no way on God's green earth he's a safety. He's just jacked. The game has gotten so big, so strong, and so fast. 290 is the new 320.
How much do you weigh?
275.
Boy, you pack it well. You don't have a gut.
No, but if I take off my clothes, you could connect the dots with all the scars. You get a dinosaur.
Howie Long joining us. So when you wake up in the morning, I know this game's taxing. How do you feel?
It depends. It's week to week with me. I've had my neck done. I've 12, 13 surgeries. So
my audience has kind of turned on me in the last couple of weeks because
have they?
Yeah, kind of.
I'm not on Twitter or anything, so I wouldn't know.
I'm not either, but my audience, most audiences love their radio guy. My audience is day-to-day with me. And they just sometimes they don't like me. They've been a little upset because, not that I've said Deflategate's fine.
You're like the Patriots. People are either going to love you
kind of,
or they're going to hate you.
And they all think I cheat.
Yeah.
So I've been telling my audience, listen, Pete Carroll had violations at USC. He's got Adderall stuff, got practice. Right. The truth is, in every industry...
Do we really want to go down this road?
That's what I'm saying.
That's my point.
Everybody's pushing, man. Jack, you played with Tatum.
Do we really want to go down this road?
Your Raider
stuffing
games?
The balls, Hey, look, I have no knowledge of the aforementioned incident. It's the only thing you need to remember.
Of Jack Tatum?
Of anything. Anything you bring up, I have no knowledge of the aforementioned incident.
So that's kind of when you were a Raider. Now let's be honest.
Sure.
They were the rebels of the league. They were the bad guys.
Do you think the Patriots were the only team filming the opposing team's sideline?
Of course not. I don't think they're the only team doing the deflate thing.
Well, I have. Listen, footballs were not in my world. I don't know what happens to the football.
You never touched it.
No, so it's not a concern of mine.
But when you were with the Raiders, wasn't there a stick-em thing kind of?
Sure.
You want to talk about that?
It's pretty out. It's pretty out in the open. I have no knowledge of the aforementioned incident.
Okay.
I go to that. I think Whitey Bulger somehow is involved with the deflation.
They found him in Santa Monica, right by the Fox studios.
You believe, with a wall full of money.
$800,000 in the wall.
It's great.
Howie Long, it's great seeing you.
Good seeing you, partner.
All right.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
You got to hold every Super Bowl. This is nothing against Indianapolis, New York. You got to hold these Super Bowls in warm weather. When these Indianapolis fans are like, you hold it. We held it in Indianapolis, and it was so well done. Yes, and you can run in traffic and not get hit by a car, but I wouldn't tempt fate. Just hold it in warm places. Can you imagine if you were holding the Super Bowl yesterday in New York? And by the way, New York doesn't need the Super Bowl. There's a lot to do in New York. Scottsdale, it adds to the community. There's a million things to do in New York. Paris, New York, London, they don't need the Super Bowl. A lot of stuff going on. Scottsdale, Miami, it's fun. Put it here. It's warm. So There's this thing in Connecticut where I live, this local grocer, and I don't know if this happens in a lot of states, but they do this like home delivery for groceries, and it's pretty cost efficient. Like you don't have to go to the grocery store. I like going to the grocery store. Always have. I like it. I like to get my stuff for my smoothies. It's important to me. It's personal. I'm not a big shopping guy, but of all the shopping experiences, I like the grocery store. I like to go every day. I go every day to the grocery store. Okay, I don't even like to go out in public, but I like the grocery store. Wife hates it. So my wife did this thing with a local grocer. It's called Peapod, where like you pay like $7, $8, and they'll just deliver your groceries. And she's like, I don't want to go every day. I got kids. I got stuff to do. So she does it, and then after she uses this little service, she's like, this is amazing. It's amazing. It's like $7. I don't have to go grocery shopping anymore. I have to drive there, wait in line. And I said, wouldn't it be great if you didn't ever have to wait in line? Like with DMV, parking, somebody always took your bags. I said, that life exists. It's called the American celebrity. It's a different life. America's uniquely set up for the American celebrity. Not all countries are. We are. You make a certain amount, you get a certain fame, don't have to do stuff. And Lance Armstrong said yesterday, yeah, I'd probably dope again. Oh, that didn't sit well. Lance Armstrong, cheated cyclist, said, yeah, it was, I wouldn't if I was racing now to 2015, but back then, if you took me back to 95, it was part of the culture. I'd probably do it again. A lot of people didn't like that. What are you saying? He's saying world travel, unlimited access, date Sheryl Crow, private jets. Cyclists don't live that life. Lance did. But Colin, he's in lawsuits. Yeah, he is. And still lives a better life than any American cyclist. Colin, what you're saying is that America uniquely offers a celebrity life. That's why famous rich people want to live that life and continue it. And if you look at Lance Armstrong's life, and it's been cruddy for the last 18 months, really bad. He doesn't wait in line still, does his own thing still, lives a life you and I don't live still. Remember Goodfellas? Remember the movie Goodfellas? Ray Liotta character, mobster forever. Then he has to go into the witness protection program. Okay, so they move him to wherever people go, rural Arkansas, wherever people go in the witness protection program. A lot of people end up in Scottsdale, actually. But the point is, Ray Liotta, they take that final shot where he's in your typical American suburb. And here's what he says.
That's the hardest part. Today everything is different. There's no action. I have to wait around like everyone else. Can't even get decent food. Right after I got here, I ordered some spaghetti with marinara sauce, and I got egg noodles and ketchup. I'm an average nobody. Get to live the rest of my life like a schnook.
Lance Armstrong, despite the last 18 months, 24, elevated himself above other cyclists. Schnooks. That's how he sees it. Not saying it's right. Not saying it's right. Big difference between me telling you it's right and me just saying, I get it. Lance Armstrong, 95, doesn't do that. Never date Sheryl Crow. No other cyclist doing private jets. VIP access. You want to know why mobsters do what they do? Don't have to wait in lines. DMV, parking. Somebody takes your bags. You want to know why people cheat? You want to know why the rich keep pushing? It's a different life. So everybody can say, Lance Armstrong's a bum, he's a creep. No, what he's saying is, I wouldn't do it again today because of the transparency. But to go back to 1995 and live the life I lived for 15 years, I wouldn't trade it. America creates it. It's amazing. Sometimes you get knocked around as a celebrity. But I get it. I get it. I mean, Lance Armstrong, he's not going to work this morning. You and I are.
Technology gone bad. Gone bad. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
You know, I'm not really into interviewing athletes. Like, I'll bring on smart guys like Howie Long, Peter King. Like, I like guys who can come on, but there's certain athletes. I'm not a guy. Vince, my producer, comes up to me before Super Bowl week every year. And at ESPN, a lot of people just interview athlete, and I turn down like 15 quarterbacks. I'm like, I'll take Drew Brees, but there's certain guys I just like. Richard Sherman is always welcome. Greg Olson, did you listen to that guy? That guy's going to be an analyst. I mean, that guy is going to be a rock star on TV. Martellus Bennett's coming on, Bears tight end. He's out there. He's funny. He's different. But, you know, one of the things, like during Super Bowl, a lot of the people come around, a lot of autograph seekers. They want the stars. Not that many athletes to me are interesting. Charles Barkley's interesting. Howie Long's interesting. Terry Bradshaw can be interesting. Most professional athletes, I'm not going to lie to you, they're not that interesting. Greg Olson's interesting. Martellus Bennett, Richard Sherman are interesting. So just a little behind the scenes. Yes, we turn down 10 athletes for the one we bring on. Arian Foster's on this week. Very cerebral, very ethereal, very unique. But I got to tell you something. We turn down 90% of the athletes. They're just not that interesting. Like, I'm not one of these guys that just lines up a guy because he wants to be on the show, whether he's selling something or not. But I love Greg Olson, Martellus Bennett, Arian Foster later this week, Richard Sherman. Today's media day at the Super Bowl. You know, you get what you get. It's kind of become a circus. You go out there and there's a wedding proposal. You don't get a lot out of it. You really don't. It's more now kind of a publicity event. So we'll bring you some sound if we can get it last hour. If there's anything really interesting from Media Day today, which started about an hour ago, our guys back at ESPN, they'll line up a few bites if it's very interesting. Here's a story. Fox Sports' Jay Glazer. There's a new piece of evidence in the Deflategate. I'm not really sure what to make of it. A locker room attendant who allegedly took the footballs from the officials' locker room after they were inspected and approved, he took them to another area on the way to the field. Outrageous, right? Sinister, right? Well, we know now, a league source says it was a bathroom, and he was there for like 90 seconds. So my guess is it was a young kid who had to take a pee. I know that doesn't play to the national narrative. I mean, a young guy grabbed some footballs. Okay, this is not a knock at Jay Glazer. If I had the information, I would report it too. But a young guy went and grabbed the footballs on the way to the field, stopped at a bathroom for 90 seconds, and then went back out into the field. My gut feeling is in 90 seconds, he had to go pee. That's just my takeaway. I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. I don't know how much you can do with a dozen footballs in 90 seconds. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. But they've got tape. It's 90 seconds. It's a bathroom. I don't see it as sinister. I'm not trying to be an apologist. Now, Robert Kraft came out yesterday. Robert Kraft came out, and he drew a line in the sand. He's like, hey, if you don't find something, you owe this entire organization an apology. Here's Robert Kraft.
The Wells investigation is not able to definitively determine that our organization tampered with the air pressure in the footballs. I would expect and hope that the league would apologize to our entire team, and in particular, Coach Belichick and Tom Brady, for what they have had to endure this past week.
Basically, that is Robert Kraft calling out Ted Wells. Ted Wells is a $2,000 an hour attorney. He's a big shot. He's spearheading the investigation. Basically, Robert Kraft, who's a billionaire and has to deal with attorneys on his side and against him all the time, is saying, all right, $2,000 an hour attorney Ted Wells. you're going to owe me an apology if you can't find anything. And Kraft went on to say, I know Bill and I know Tom, and I trust my guys.
Tom, Bill, and I have been together for 15 years. They are my guys. They are part of my family. And Bill, Tom, and I have had many difficult discussions over the years, and I have never known them to lie to me.
Okay, so what Kraft is really doing there, he's calling out Ted Wells, the $2,000 an hour attorney, and saying, my guys don't lie, you're going to owe me an apology, I think this is BS, come and get me. That's what happened yesterday. I don't know what to make of Jay Glazer, the attendant, 90 seconds before the field. I don't deal with gauges. I don't know how much you could do in 90 seconds with a dozen footballs. I mean, do the time. That's like 7 seconds of football. Maybe you did. Or maybe you just had to go to the bathroom. It may have been the least private pee in NFL history. It could have been just a dude going into a stall and peeing. And now it's public. That's my guess, but I don't want to be naive. Yeah, hope he washed his hands, because it's like gross if he didn't. We've all known the guy that goes to the bathroom. Don't you check? I do. Anytime I go to the bathroom and I see a fellow employee, I'm like, the dude doesn't wash his hands, I'm ratting him out. I won't even fist bump him. No thanks. Not interested. Wash your hands. Some evidence is irrefutable. And this just is the way evidence works. I remember in the O.J. trial, like there was a lot of evidence in the O.J. trial, right? And a lot of it you can, circumstantial, he said, planted, she's, but there were a couple of things in the O.J. trial very early, and I was like, oh, he's guilty. And it's funny because it didn't always get the most press. But the thing with the O.J. trial that always, to me, made him guilty was they found size 13 Bruno Mali shoes at the scene. So if O.J. didn't do it, the other guy had to have size 13 $300 shoes too. That's not the profile of most murderers. I was always like, how many guys do you know that have ever worn size 13 Bruno Malis? I've never seen a pair. They're like fashion shoes. So if O.J. didn't do it because he owned those shoes, then the other murderer must have had 13 size Bruno Malis. Like that evidence to me was like, forget all the other stuff. That's the evidence. Like, who wears those shoes? Famous people. Famous people generally don't go out in the middle of the night and murder people. So the one thing I'll say about Deflategate that I just can't get past, and you can say this, you can say that, here's the reality that people in Las Vegas and sports bettors know. What I'm going to tell you is not my opinion. What I'm going to tell you is how guys who bet football for a living think. Fumbles are impossible to predict. The team that leads the league in fumbles one year could be last the next. Interceptions can follow quarterbacks through a career. Brady doesn't throw a lot, Eli does. Fumbles are considered completely random. So they vary game to game, week to week, year to year. You can fumble 6 times on Sunday. Next week you fumble not once. The way wise guys and bettors look at fumbles is they don't really talk about them. You can't predict them. That's what the guys who bet football have always known about fumbles. Some players are slightly more prone to them, but they generally get benched. The one thing that I think always hurts the Patriots in this Deflategate isn't the quarterback stuff. It's the running back stuff. Listen to these numbers. Even looking at fumble totals, total fumbles, not just fumbles lost, the Patriots are the only outdoor team in the last 25 years to average 70 plays per fumble. They're the only one. Now, you could say, well, Belichick has certain methods. But if that's true, and they're so efficient, then why don't guys like Romeo Crennel and Josh McDaniels, who coach under Belichick, why don't they take those brilliant methods with them? Romeo Crennel teams fumble like crazy. The one piece of evidence against the Patriots, it's not quarterback stuff. They don't fumble, and they play in horrible weather. They fumble significantly less than dome teams. Players like Danny Amendola, who fumble all the time somewhere else indoors, go to New England, never fumble. Okay. So that's the Bruno Mali shoes to OJ for me. You can talk about all this Deflategate stuff. Patriot players who have fumbled elsewhere go to New England, don't fumble. New England don't fumble, like Garrett Blunt, leave fumble, come back, don't fumble. A little suspicious. Little. They're the Bruno Mali shoes to me. That's the stat. I'm like, Danny Amendola was a fumble waiting to happen indoors. He goes to New England, they're playing in blizzards. Can't let go of the rock. Never comes out. It's tied to my arm.
Putting style in black T-shirts. It's Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
He's one of the most unique guys in the NFL. He's just finished his first animated short film, Zuvi. He'll actually be finished March 13th. He's got another 6 scheduled. He's got 2 children's books coming out. He's trying to get an internship at DreamWorks. His company, Imagination Agency, a few years ago, he starts this. There's very few athletes I consider sort of artists. Martellus, Bennett, Chicago Bears, former Cowboys, tight end, Giants. You're a guy that has a life outside of football, and when you first broke into this league, people were like, Martellus, he loves football, but it's not his entire life. He needs to get more focused. And Dan Lebitard and I have talked about this, about, football players are humans too. They got a life outside of it.
Yeah.
So you've got a very broad life outside of football. Do you think sometimes people mistake that for you don't love football?
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, it is a lot of people think I don't love football, but I really love. Only reason I play football is because I love to play football. I don't have to play football because, most people put a dollar amount on it, but I don't really need a ton of money to feel like I'm successful. So I define success. What success is for me personally, not what the world or society tells me what successful is. So on the outside looking in, when I try to do other things, I always tell people, like kids, you're allowed to have more than one dream. Football is only one of my dreams. So many people just follow one dream instead of try to catch them all, and they're satisfied with it. But there's so many things that I dreamed of doing that I want to do before I die.
You want to be the Martin Scorsese of animated short films. You want to do a lot of different. Most of them are kid-focused, right?
Yeah, I love Pixar. I love DreamWorks. I actually emailed and talked to Ed Catmull on the phone. My friend was at a book signing, and he was there. He told me he was there, so I told him, hand him the phone. I was like, hey, it's Martellus Bennett. And then I emailed him as well. But I'm a big fan of Tim Burton. Tim Burton's probably my favorite.
He's out there, so you're out there too?
Yeah, Dr. Seuss, Roald Dahl, Shel Silverstein, and Jim Carrey's one of my favorite actors of all time. So it's a lot of guys that's really, really quirky.
Your brother and you, he's a couple years older. Michael Bennett is a star for the Seahawks. And it's almost a collegiate team. They feel like a college team. When you talk to him about Seattle and the defense and the way they play, what does he say to you about Seattle?
I think the number one thing he says is that guys are passionate about their performance. So everybody holds everybody else accountable. So if you miss a tackle on that team, it's beyond frowned upon. Like, you don't want to go to work if you miss a tackle. So all these guys are working very hard to not be the guy on the tape to be like, oh, you messed up, because there's so many great people on the team.
And Seattle, you told me during the break, they like to tackle.
Yes, a lot of people in the NFL, they don't really like to tackle no more. I feel like, from the DB position or, a lot of safeties and things like that, they don't tackle like they used to. But everyone on their team likes to tackle. Even their DBs, you see Earl Thomas is one of the smallest guys on the field, but he's flying around everywhere, and Cam Chancellor's, to me, is, if not the best tackler in the NFL, he's top 3.
So it's a physical football team. And what happens sometimes, Martellus, is when you're around a lot of great players, it raises your game. It almost feels like the Seattle guys are competing against each other, like who's going to get the bigger hit.
Yeah, they are. That's a big part of it. Like on offense in Chicago, I'm always competing with Brandon and Matt and Alshon to make the biggest play in the game. So I think the teams who are ever able to do that, they're able to push each other to the next level.
Though. But you're not rooting against teammates.
Oh, no, you're not rooting against himself. If Alshon makes a big play, I'm kind of like, oh, man, I got to outdo Alshon this play. That was a nice catch, so now I got to make a big play. And I think for them, it's like, who's going to get the sack? But at the same time, my brother is one of the most unselfish defensive linemen I've seen, because a lot of people don't notice him a lot because he doesn't get a lot of sacks. But he's always twisting and stunting, and other guys are getting sacks off his.
Yes. He eats up space and opens lanes for other guys.
Exactly, but a lot of guys who are on defense ends, they don't want to run stunts because it takes them out of position to get a sack.
And they don't get the stats, they don't get the bonus, they don't get noticed.
Yes.
And so does your brother have your same sort of artistic personality? You're the younger brother, he's the older brother.
Yes, I mean, we're about 18 months apart.
Older brothers are more serious.
Well, Michael's very, very funny, but we're different. Michael's a history buff and into politics, and I'm more into, like, he's real strong in, like, black history and all our ancestors and things that we come from, and I'm really artsy, and I'm, like, in the clouds, and I just read. If it doesn't have to do with design, then I usually don't read it, but Michael's always, like, he's, like, one of the few people that I know that got on Ancestry.com to track down our roots, so, he's very, very, he likes to know the past, you know, and things.
And you're looking to the future.
I try to create my own future and my own past.
So now, may I ask, were your parents into this?
My parents aren't very artsy, but growing up, they kept us well rounded. Like, I grew up playing 3 instruments. You know, I played the trombone, the trumpet, and the clarinet. The clarinet, because that's what the girls played.
Who plays the clarinet?
I did, because all the girls in my school played the clarinet, so I wanted to be next to the girls. so I learned to play the clarinet, because I had this one pretty girl named Amanda. She was pretty good, but she ended up being second chair to me, because I was first chair, which is big time in band. If you're first chair, that means, like, you're the number one position at that. It's like being first team. Second chair is like being almost as good as the first chair.
So you were second chair?
I was first chair.
You were first chair?
Yes. I almost thought about buying a trigger trombone for Christmas to start back playing.
Let's get into Amanda. What happened in that relationship?
We didn't have a relationship.
No.
You know, it was one of those things.
No.
She was Korean, and I was a 6'7" black guy in 8th grade. I don't think her parents liked me that much. I was cool, though, man. I was nice.
She was beautiful.
She's all right. My wife is prettier. Hey, baby.
I love bringing you on the show. Nobody talks about the clarinet.
I love it. I mean, my favorite instrument is the trombone. I had recently had my daughter. My daughter's 10 months. So everyone sends pianos, and she loves to play the piano, and she plays it with her feet, which I tell her is the wrong way to play it.
What?
She doesn't play any songs. She just basically pounds on the keys.
How old is she?
10 months. She plays.
Well, okay, I thought she was like 12 years old. I was going to say we got an issue here. So
unless she was 12 years old playing with her feet, then we have a really, really talented kid.
You'd have another animated short film.
Yes, I would. So I don't think she's able. Maybe she wants to play with her feet and not her hands. You know, it might play into Darwin's evolution a little bit, you know, with us coming from monkeys, if some people believe in that.
Jesus, now you're just going off the rails with me. I don't know where to go here.
Darwin's evolution?
Well, yeah, I know. Guys like me can't talk about that.
Oh, that's cool.
You just get thrown off networks if you go talk about that stuff.
Oh, Darwin's evolution?
Well, you know, it's just...
They don't like Darwin's evolution?
I don't know what it is.
Good morning, America.
Dude, you've talked about relationships. You've talked about evolution. This is maybe the best interview I've ever had. Tim Burton.
I love Tim Burton. Tim Burton, if you're out there, am I looking into the camera? Is the camera in my face?
It's right there.
Hey, Tim, I love your work. I would like to work with you one day. Let's do some work.
Hey, by the way, I want to look at the camera, too. Can I look at the camera real quick?
They can't see your eyes, though.
Hold on. All right, let me look at the camera.
You got to be sincere.
Okay, I'm going to be sincere. Hey, Jay Cutler, get your act together. Throw to him more. Seriously, I'm so tired of him. I'm not, what? See, now you're acting like I was with Darwin's revolution or evolution. Okay, I got to get...
Jay, I love you.
All right, I love you. Anytime you want to come on my show.
All right, man, I'd love to be on the show.
Colin Cowherd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Peter King, the Monday Morning Quarterback.com, which I go to every Monday. You are they call Derrick Rose a volume scorer. You're a volume columnist. How long does it take for that 20, 25 pages? You start 4 o'clock on a Sunday?
No. I spend most of the day Saturday either both on the phone and then writing. It has to be. You've got to get 4,000 words done before the games start on Sunday, or you'd never have a chance, because I'm at NBC until 11 o'clock on Sunday nights. So you physically can't, in 7 or 8 hours, write 10,000 words. You just couldn't do it. So I have to have like a 4,000 word head start with stuff that happens during the week.
When you're a reporter, and a profoundly ingrained, embedded reporter, the way this game works is some people you get along with, some you don't. Some people can have thin skin. Hopefully most don't. over the course of your career, and especially when you are now so visible, I find the Patriots a fascinating relationship with you. They're the league's dynasty. You are very popular and very public. They don't necessarily like any information that they don't control. We talked about this last time you were on. Some teams are easy to cover. Would it be fair for me to say the Patriots are a rough team to cover? They don't make your job easy.
Well, they're a hard team to cover, but I don't think it's an antagonistic thing.
Have you ever had those?
Oh, of course. I mean, okay, so most people know I have not talked to Bill Belichick in a long time. But there's nothing, he just simply made the choice after Spygate that I had said and written some things that he didn't like, so he wasn't going to talk to me, that's okay. I mean, some people get upset by things that are said or written. It's absolutely fine. But if I go to the Patriots, I went to their playoff game against Baltimore. It did some NBC stuff and then covered it afterwards for the MMQB. And, lots of cooperation from Robert Kraft. Guys in the locker room are good. It's not, again, it's much different when you helicopter in 2 or 3 days a year to cover a team, because that's what I do.
Yes.
Whereas if you cover that team on a daily basis, I think it's got to be pretty hard. I talk to people who cover that team, and it is difficult because they're a very, very private organization.
Go back to the first Super Bowl you covered, and this week. How has it changed? Obviously, it's a bigger deal.
The first Super Bowl I covered was 49ers and Dolphins at Palo Alto. And what I'll never forget about that week is that the game is in Palo Alto at a college stadium.
Yes.
And it wasn't really very nice. And, the stadium itself, it just had a lot of seats. And so it was good. And San Francisco, the site of the game, it was just ramping up to be Hypeville. But I don't know how many people were there that week.
What was the first Super Bowl, Peter, that you felt, this is now a social
phenomenon?
I mean, the ratings were always good, but it's changed corporate-wise. Was there an epiphany for you that you covered an event and thought, this is the biggest event in the world?
I think probably, that happened first with an exclamation point. I think at the Giants Super Bowl in Los Angeles, their first Super Bowl. And it wasn't because it was just the mega game. It was just that I covered the Giants at the time. And what I'll never forget about that week is that Bill Parcells is the kind of guy who is going to go have coffee and sit in the lobby of his hotel every morning at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So it was at 4 o'clock, and I knew every morning in the lobby of the West and South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa, California, that if I went down in that hotel at 4:30 in the morning, Bill Parcells was going to be sitting over in the corner, drinking coffee, talking to people, being with his old mentor Mickey Corcoran from Oradell, New Jersey, and that was 3 or 4 of the best hours I've ever had covering the NFL, because you weren't interviewing, you were just talking to the guy in the week of the Super Bowl. But late in that week, he couldn't do it anymore because the lobby became overrun.
Yeah, Thursday
became overrun with hangers-on and gamblers and autograph seekers and all that stuff. And there was a sadness to him because, he loves just, sitting around drinking coffee and just talking. He's a conversationalist. He may not seem that to a lot of people.
I think he is. I've watched him on a show in New York, the Michael Kay Show.
Yeah.
And it's called Center Stage, and I've watched it. It replays over and over. He's really good at it.
Yeah.
He has certain methodologies. Certain people aren't deep thinkers. Parcells, you can tell, has gotten in a car before and driven for 4 hours and talked to himself.
Yeah.
He's thought about Peter everything. Yeah. Now, Belichick is a different animal. Do you think this Deflategate in his soul bothers him? He seemed angry.
I think it bothers him because, as of now, if you take him at his word, he knew absolutely nothing.
That's right.
Okay, so, we'll find out if that's true or not. I don't know whether he knew something. I don't know if Tom Brady, I don't know if anybody knew anything. But here's the only point I would say, that Bill Belichick, the reason why I probably feel a little bit different about this story than any of the other ones that he's been involved in, especially Spygate, and if they've been accused of something, because he usually comes out and he'll say, just let the league handle that. I'm not going to talk about it. We're not going to say. He came out like, Cassius Clay against Sonny Liston.
No question.
I mean, he came out swinging. And so, that's when you just say to yourself, okay, let's start to think about all these things. I mean, let's start to think about, how this could have happened without Belichick knowing it. To me, it's quite plausible that Bill Belichick wouldn't have known about it. But again, I don't know. And that's why this investigation is going to be so important.
You know what's amazing about sports? Joe Torre sort of reinvented himself. Joe Torre had a losing record, went to the Yankees, became an icon. People forget, Pete Carroll, when he was hired at USC was mocked. They had Paul Hackett. They're like, you just had an NFL guy. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll was seen as an awful, not regrettable, not a moderate choice, an awful choice for USC. Do you remember the early Pete? Because a lot of people think of Pete Carroll as this.
Yeah.
You covered the early Pete.
You know what I remember about Pete Carroll early on, like when he was the coach of the New York Jets?
I don't even remember it.
Okay, Colin, they had this training facility at Hofstra University out on Long Island. Yeah. It was wedged into this little corner of the Hofstra campus. It was really hard to get there. It's right next to Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum where the Islanders play.
Beautiful facility.
And, But anyway, so you'd go there, and I got there one day early in Pete's, like maybe in the spring after he got the job, and I noticed there's a basketball hoop up. And that afternoon, I saw Pete Carroll playing basketball against some players. There was like a 3-on-3 game out in the parking lot. They cleared a spot, they put a hoop, and they took out some of the parking spaces, and they built a little half-court basketball court. And Pete would go out and play all the time. He's a jock.
He is.
I notice that now. Like, I was pool reporter last year covering the Seahawks practices, which I'll be again this year. You know what made him the happiest? When we were walking off the field after the first day's practice, and he goes, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Pete, this is the 9th time I've been a pool reporter for a team in the NFL." So, in other words, for people who don't know, it means that one reporter is allowed to watch each team's practice during the week, and you write a short practice report afterwards. I'll never forget. He said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Pete, I've done this 9 times. And that is the hardest practice I've ever seen in terms of physically demanding and running hard and playing as hard as they could." And he was just beaming. He said, "That's it. It's competition. It's competition Wednesday. Everybody out here knows that if somebody else plays a lot better, they're going to play more snaps on Sunday." And so that's what he's infused with the Seahawks.
Years ago at Southern California, he let me into his office, and we were just talking, and it's funny you say that. I said, what makes you proudest of what you've built? And he said, "You know what I love?" He goes, "I've lost, it was like his 5th year, and they just won titles." He goes, "Look at our last 4 losses. You had to beat us on your best day. We don't play poorly. You have to play so hard, and then you may be lucky enough to get a tip ball in the end."
Yeah.
He goes, "Nobody plays us and beats us. They have to play so hard." Like, Pete's whole thing is, are you ready to rumble? Like, when you play my teams, we're taking you to the well. Like, Pete would be more disappointed winning, and his team half-arsed it.
Right, definitely so. You're right about that. That's why he loves, when I go to see the Seahawks in training camp every year and watch a practice or two, what always sticks out in my mind is here it is July 27th, and Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas are sprinting to the ball in a drill. They're not going 93%. They're going 99, 100%. It's impressive that is what he has instilled in his players.
I think New England, this is a really interesting game to me. Like, when you get down
I think it is too.
I think it's like yesterday, a couple of our guys went down and they listed every player 1 to 110, which is a dangerous game when you get past 50 and you're infuriating players. But you got down to like 15 and it was Max Unger, a Pro Bowl level center. You got down to 24, it was Julian Edelman. I mean, there's like 20 guys that could be the MVP.
Yeah, there's a lot of good players. You know what I find interesting, Colin? There's 106 players, active players in this game. And over the weekend, when each team practiced, there was only one player out of 106, J.R. Sweezy.
You said this.
Yeah, who is not healthy enough to practice. How amazing is that you get to this point after 23 weeks of preseason and practice and 16 regular season games and then your 2 playoff games. You get to this 23rd week, and how amazing is it that all 106 players on the 2 teams are going to play? Now, obviously, some guys went by the wayside on IR, but, for all 53 guys on each team to be healthy right now, relatively speaking, I think is amazing in the way this game is played.
Well, baseball, similarly, a sport you love, attrition's a big part of it.
Very much.
Is your bullpen healthy? Because games now, people don't score. Everybody's close in the 7th. If your bullpen's healthy, your team's healthy August on.
Yeah.
And years ago, I was listening to a pregame right before the Super Bowl. I drove to the store, and the Giants were in it. And Bob Papa is the longtime voice of the Giants. And I'm driving to the store, and he goes, you know what's remarkable? Almost kickoff. He said, one special teams player is hurt on this roster. He goes, I've been covering this league for 20 years. This is the healthiest team. You know what, Peter? Sometimes it's just who's the healthiest team.
That's right. No question about it. I was amazed last year. I said Chip Kelly, I saw him in the offseason, and I'll never forget this. Week 14 last year, the Philadelphia Eagles went out to practice in Week 14, and every player on their team practiced, and including all of his practice squad guys. They had 61 players at that practice, all healthy, all out there, all practicing. Now, obviously, people go on IR, but to have late in the season, to have your healthy team, those are the teams that, and if your quarterback's healthy, those are the teams that win.
The Monday Morning Quarterback.com, the MMQB.com. Great seeing you.
Thanks a lot, Colin. Great being with you.
Scottsdale. Hold it here every year, folks. Yeah. I'm telling you.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
So I have a couple of things that I think are pretty interesting, that are behind-the-scenes things. First of all, in St. Louis yesterday, the Rams took a huge step toward moving to Los Angeles. Because in St. Louis, the Convention and Visitors Commission, the CDC, yesterday announced they're going to shift from a long-term lease to a year-to-year lease. That was part of the contract. So from this point forward, Stan Kroenke owns the Rams every single year. Year by year, it's just a one-year lease. That's all it is now. And if you're about to get married and the husband or the wife will not say at the altar, till death do us part, instead only says, let's take this year by year, it's probably not going to last forever. In St. Louis, they will no longer say, till death do us part. It is a year-by-year lease. Here is my belief what is happening, is that the NFL, and according to a report this morning, there was quiet applause in the league office when this was announced. NFL executives over the last 2 years, I've been told, by somebody way up the food chain in the NFL, that the NFL the last 2 years, realizing they are now not just the biggest sports league in America, they're the number one TV show on 5 networks. They weren't 10 years ago. They have watched the ESPYs and come to the conclusion, we got to get to L.A. We are now not just a football league. We are no longer just a sport. We are the topic of conversation in America households. Better part of the week, all 5 networks. We're American Idol times 10. And American Idol used to be the show 10 years ago everybody talked about. Now, and they were just on one network. So NFL execs really at that point, a couple years ago, decided, we got to get to L.A. Love Green Bay, love Indy, love Buffalo, love Jacksonville. We got to get to L.A. What do you do now? Now, this is where my theory comes in. They've got to find an owner who will be a bad guy. Because whoever pulls the team out and moves to L.A. is going to take a PR hit. L.A.'s already had 2 teams. They both failed. How can you take a team out of the Midwest where they love their football and go to L.A. where they don't need it? Whoever moves to L.A. is going to take a PR hit. Doesn't matter what owner it is. Stan Kroenke, virtually anonymous, you couldn't pick him out at a food court in a mall right now if he walked through it, said, I'll take the hit. I'll move my team. There's about 5-6 owners there. Stan's like, okay, I own about 9,000 sports teams in the world. I'll take the hit. In the process, This is what billionaires do. What do I get? What you get is you build a stadium, we're going to give you 4 Super Bowls in 12 years. So this is just my belief, and I could be wrong. But the league decided a couple years ago, okay, we got to get to L.A. Let's look at everybody's leases. Let's find a place where we can turn it into a year-by-year lease and build a real stadium. There's been a lot of threats through the years. This is no longer a threat. Stan Kroenke then, in the last 15, 18 months, whenevs, buys a huge plot of land out in Inglewood where the Fabulous Forum is, which I don't know much about it now. I haven't been there in years. So, my belief on this is St. Louis is moving. They're going to build a stadium over 3 or 4 years, get through the politics, and he'll take the PR hit, but he's pretty anonymous anyway. He's not a guy that 90% of my audience doesn't even know, 99% doesn't even know what Stan Kroenke looks like. He's not Jerry Jones. He's not Dan Snyder. He's not Robert Kraft. He's not a public person. He'll take the hit. You don't hang out in Bel Air anywhere. You're not going to see him anyway, but he'll get a payout. He'll get a bunch of Super Bowls. Brian, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Brian, and you go ahead.
Who am I supposed to root for now? They take my St. Louis Rams away from me. I was, Arizona Cardinals? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm a lifelonger. I was a Cardinal fan when they moved to Arizona. Now they're moving to L.A. again. St. Louis isn't going to get a team back, obviously.
Yeah. Well, you got the Cardinals, obviously, best baseball organization in the sport, the San Antonio Spurs of baseball.
I need a football team, Colin. I got to have a football team to root for.
Well,
I'm in Illinois. I don't root for Chicago. It's 4.5 hours away. I can't go to a Bears game.
Do you know the number one television market in America for NFL teams? Do you know what it is?
I would say New York.
Honolulu. They don't have a team. You know who's second? Las Vegas. Who says you have to live in the state to root for a team? Do you live in Los Angeles when you watch The Voice? Do you have to, seriously, why do you have to only root for teams within your area code? Why can't you still love them?
Well, I do. I still root for the Cardinals because they're in Arizona. Love Kurt Warner when he was down there. I'm a Rams. Oh, by the way, Brian, yesterday, super love that guy. Hate the Patriots. Can't stand them.
But let me ask you this.
I've always been a Ram. I've always been an area football guy, though.
But you know what? Thank you for the call, Brian. But if you're married and your wife goes on a girl's vacation for a month, do you not love her because she's out of the area code? I mean, the idea that, hey, I have a team. You don't have a right to move it. It's not your team. It's the NFL's and it's the owners. Look at our sponsors. They move headquarters all the time. I grew up in Seattle with Boeing. They moved to Chicago. Companies move all the time. They take jobs out of communities. Big factory in East Lansing moves, goes to Baton Rouge. What about my factory? What about it? We don't own our teams. We don't own our factories. We don't even own our kids. They're human beings. But what about my team? You can't still root for it? I mean, I live 3,000 miles away from the Seattle Mariners. They'll always be in my heart. What you love at 9, you love for the rest of your life. So fans sometimes, what about me? What about you? Who says you can't root for a team when they leave? Well, they're not my team. They are if you want them to be. You get divorced. You don't live with your kids. You don't love them as much because they're down the street. Proximity doesn't mean truer love, greater passion. Proximity doesn't equal that. What do they say? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Ryan, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Ryan, you go ahead.
Hey, just have that last caller just tell him to move out to L.A. and he's good.
You can follow the team. that can be at times a little unrealistic, but I hear this all the time. What about my team? What about it? What about your team? Teams move, companies move, factories move. They have a right. They're not our teams. They're the owners' teams. They're the league's teams.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.